morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of New Seoul Colony when the ships appeared in the sky. Commander Kim Dae was reviewing supply reports in his office when the emergency sirens began wailing. Through his window, he watched massive silver vessels descend through the clouds like falling stars. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from Sectors 7 and 9. Lieutenant Park Jin burst into the office, his face pale with panic. "Something's attacking the outer settlements." Kim Dae grabbed his weapon and communication device. "Get all available units to the transport bay. Now." The flight to Sector 7 took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. As their shuttle approached the farming community of Haven Ridge, Kim Dae saw smoke rising from dozens of buildings. Bodies lay scattered across the main street like broken toys. "Landing zone is clear, sir," reported the pilot, his voice shaking. Kim Dae and his team moved through the destroyed settlement with weapons ready. The attack had been swift and brutal. Scorch marks from energy weapons covered the walls of houses. Children's toys lay abandoned in the dirt next to their young owners. "What kind of monsters did this?" whispered Sergeant Oh Min, staring at a family that had tried to hide in their basement. "Sir, movement in the grain storage facility," called out Corporal Yoon Soo. "Multiple life signs." They found them huddled in the underground storage rooms. 3 families, 15 people total, had managed to escape the slaughter above. The children clung to their parents while the adults stared with hollow, terrified eyes. "Please don't hurt us," begged an elderly man named Lee Hana. "We've been hiding for 6 days. We thought you were them coming back." Kim Dae knelt down to the man's level. "We're human defense forces. You're safe now. Can you tell us what happened?" Lee Hana's hands shook as he spoke. "They came from the sky in those silver ships, tall creatures twice our height, with 4 arms and skin like scales. Their eyes were like predators watching prey. A young woman named Bae Du held her infant daughter close. They weren't trying to kill everyone at first. They were taking people alive, herding them like cattle toward the forest. They had weapons that could stun instead of kill," added another survivor. "They were choosing who lived and who died. The strong ones, the fast ones, they kept alive." Kim Dae felt ice form in his stomach. "What did they do with the people they took?" "They released them into the woods," Lee Hana continued, "like setting animals free before a hunt. Then they waited. They gave them a head start, maybe an hour. After that, the real killing began." The survivors described creatures that moved through the forest with deadly precision. The aliens used advanced tracking technology to follow their human prey, while wealthy-looking individuals in decorative armor took turns shooting at the fleeing colonists. "They were laughing," whispered Bae Du. "When people begged for mercy, when children cried for their parents, these things were laughing, like it was the most amusing thing they had ever seen." One teenage boy named Kang Min had watched the entire hunt from a tree where he had climbed to hide. "The ones in fancy clothes, they weren't trying to kill quickly. They aimed for legs first, to slow people down, then arms, to make them helpless. They wanted the fear to last as long as possible." Kim Dae's communication device buzzed with incoming reports. Similar attacks had hit 12 other colonies in the past week. Thousands of humans were dead or missing. "Sir," Lieutenant Park Jin spoke quietly, "we're getting word from Earth Command. These aliens call themselves the Valkyrie. Intelligence says they've been doing this to other species across the galaxy for centuries." The commander stood and walked to the storage room entrance, looking up at the sky where the alien ships had vanished. "How many more colonies have gone dark?" 17 in the past month, sir. They're expanding their hunting grounds." Back on Earth, Admiral Choi Sung sat in his command center reading reports that made his blood run cold. The Valkyrie Empire controlled hundreds of star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. Worse yet, they seemed to view humans as nothing more than exotic animals to be hunted for entertainment. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we're receiving transmission requests from Valkyrie vessels. They want to negotiate." "Put it through." The alien that appeared on screen was tall and reptilian, with 4 arms and cold, calculating eyes. It spoke, in perfect human language through a translation device. Greetings, primitive species. I am Huntmaster Velthak of the Velkari Empire. Your people provide excellent sport for our nobility. We propose establishing formal hunting preserves on your outer colonies. In exchange, we will leave your homeworld untouched. Admiral Choi's hands clenched into fists. You're asking us to let you murder our people for fun. We are offering you survival, the alien replied with what might have been amusement. Your military forces cannot oppose us. Accept our terms or we will take what we want anyway. The transmission ended, leaving the human command center in stunned silence. Earth's defense fleet consisted of barely 300 ships against an empire that controlled thousands of worlds. Sir, asked his aide quietly, what are your orders? Admiral Choi stared at the dark screen where the alien had been. Signal all colonies to begin emergency evacuations, and send word to the Prometheus Project. Tell them to accelerate their timeline. How long do we have? Not long enough. 6 months had passed since the Velkari established their first hunting preserve, on Kepler Station. What was once a thriving mining colony had been transformed into a deadly playground where alien nobles came to hunt humans for sport. Kang Min crawled through the ventilation shaft above Sector C, moving as quietly as a ghost. Below him, he could hear the heavy footsteps of Velkari guards patrolling the corridors. His former unit had been wiped out during the third hunt, but somehow he had survived by hiding in the maintenance tunnels. Blue Fox to Red Wolf, he whispered into his improvised radio. 2 guards heading toward the medical bay. Dr. Yoon might be in danger. The voice that crackled back belonged to Bei Do, a 18-year-old who had become their best scout. Copy that. I'm moving to intercept. Dr. Yoon Soo pressed herself against the wall of the abandoned laboratory, clutching her research notes. For weeks, she had been studying the Velkari guards, trying to find any weakness they could exploit. Her heart pounded as she heard alien voices approaching. The Velkari spoke in their own language, but she had learned enough to understand they were discussing the next hunt. 30 more humans would be released into the artificial forest tomorrow morning. The wealthy hunters were getting bored with easy kills and wanted more challenging prey. Suddenly, a high-pitched screech filled the corridor. The 2 guards stumbled, clutching their elongated heads in pain. Bei Do emerged from a hidden panel, holding a modified mining tool that produced ultrasonic frequencies. Run, Doctor, he whispered, helping her to her feet. This won't keep them down for long. They escaped through the maintenance tunnels while the guards were still disoriented. Dr. Yoon's discovery about the alien's sensitive hearing had given the Resistance their first real advantage. In the deep tunnels beneath the preserve, 43 human survivors had created a hidden base. They lived like rats in the walls, emerging only to gather supplies or rescue new prisoners. Their leader was Song Hyun, a former cargo ship captain who had been captured 3 months earlier. The ultrasonic pulse worked again, reported Bei Do as they gathered around their makeshift communication center. We took down 2 guards and rescued the doctor. Song Hyun studied the hand-drawn map of the preserve spread across their table. Red marks showed Velkari patrol routes, while blue marks indicated safe hiding spots they had discovered. Good work. But we need to think bigger, he said. 43 people can't fight an entire empire. We need to find a way to get word to other preserves. That opportunity came when they captured a Velkari communication device during a supply raid. Min, who had been an electronics technician before the invasion, worked for days to understand the alien technology. I think I've got it, he announced excitedly. Their communications use quantum entanglement. If I can modify the frequency, we might be able to reach other human survivors. The first contact came from Hunting Preserve Beta 12, located 3 star systems away. A woman named Captain John Woo had organized 30 survivors into a resistance cell. Her group had discovered that Velkari weapons could be overloaded by reversing their energy flow. We've taken down 6 hunting parties in the past month, she transmitted. The aliens are starting to take notice, but they think it's just equipment failure. More contacts followed. Preserve Gamma 4 reported 50 survivors led by a man named Han Bin who had been using mining explosives to collapse tunnels on hunting parties. Preserve Delta 7 had discovered that Velkari night vision could be disrupted by specific light frequencies. Lee Hanna, now part of the Resistance despite his age, had become their intelligence gatherer. He moved through the Preserve's service areas, listening to guard conversations and reporting on hunting schedules. "The nobles are getting frustrated," he reported during their evening meeting. "They expected easy kills, but humans keep disappearing. Some are demanding better security." "Let them be frustrated," growled Kang Min, cleaning a captured Velkari weapon. "Every one of their kind that dies makes up for 100 of ours they murdered." The Resistance had learned to use the Preserve's own systems against their captors. Namho, a young engineer, had figured out how to access the environmental controls. He could manipulate air circulation, lighting, and even gravity in certain sections. "Tomorrow's hunt starts at dawn," Namho explained to the group. "I can create a fog bank in Section 7 and reduce gravity by 30%. That should give our people a better chance." Dr. Yoon had been working on something even more ambitious. Using biological samples she had collected, she was developing a chemical compound that would make humans nearly invisible to Velkari tracking technology. "It's not perfect," she admitted, "but it masks our scent and body heat for about 4 hours. Enough time to escape or set up an ambush." The Resistance was growing bolder with each successful operation. They had rescued over 100 humans from hunting parties and killed dozens of Velkari guards, but their greatest achievement was psychological. "The guards are scared," observed Park Jin during a reconnaissance mission. "They travel in larger groups now. Some refuse night duty entirely." Song Hyun smiled grimly. "Good. Let them feel what it's like to be hunted." The Velkari commanders had begun to notice the pattern. What had started as minor equipment failures and isolated accidents was clearly organized resistance. But they made a crucial mistake in their response. Instead of increasing security or changing their tactics, they decided to make the hunts more brutal. They reasoned that increased fear would make the humans more compliant. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Pass the word to all resistance cells," Song Hyun transmitted to the other preserves. "The aliens want to escalate. Let's show them what escalation really means." The prey was about to become the predator. The explosion that destroyed hunting preserve Alpha 7 could be seen from orbit. Captain Song Hyun stood on the bridge of the stolen Velkari ship, watching the flames consume the facility where he had been imprisoned for 8 months. 63 humans had not only escaped but had systematically eliminated every alien on the station. "Sir, we're picking up distress signals from their home fleet," reported Oh Min from the navigation console. "They're demanding to know what happened." Song Hyun smiled coldly. "Let them wonder. Set course for the asteroid belt. We have friends to pick up." The escape had been planned for weeks. The Resistance had learned that the Velkari kept their hunting ships lightly guarded, assuming their prisoners were too primitive to operate advanced technology. They were wrong. Meanwhile, 3 light-years away on Earth, General Nam Ho briefed the assembled fleet commanders in the underground bunker that served as humanity's war room. The walls were covered with star charts showing Velkari territory and tactical displays of alien ship movements. "While they hunted our people, we studied every piece of their technology we could find," he announced. "Every crashed ship, every captured weapon, every communication device. We've learned their weaknesses." Admiral Choi Sung studied the holographic display showing the new Raptor-class destroyers under construction. The ships looked unlike anything in Earth's previous fleet. They were smaller, faster, and built specifically for hit-and-run tactics against superior forces. "How many ships do we have ready?" asked Admiral Choi. 47 Raptors, 12 converted cargo vessels, and 31 support craft, replied General Nam. "Not much against their empire, but every ship carries adaptive technology that learns from each battle." Captain John Woo commanded the lead Raptor, a sleek vessel called the Silent Hunter. Her crew had trained for months in asymmetric warfare tactics. They knew they couldn't match Velkari firepower, so they would fight differently. "Remember," she told her bridge crew, "we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them afraid." The coordinated strike began at 0400 hours, Earth time. 3 separate human fleets attacked 3 different hunting preserves simultaneously. The Velkari had never faced anything like it. At Preserve Beta 12, Captain Lim Ga led a squadron of converted mining ships against the orbital facility. The industrial vessels used their drilling equipment as weapons, tearing through alien hull plating like paper. Target their weapon systems. First, she ordered, let them feel helpless before we destroy them. The Velkari defenders were caught completely off guard. Their sensors showed human ships appearing from nowhere, using stealth technology reverse-engineered from their own vessels. But the humans fought with tactics no civilized species would consider. Commander Velthak watched his tactical display in growing horror as human ships split apart into smaller vessels, confusing his targeting systems. How is this possible? They were supposed to be primitive animals. His weapons officer's voice trembled with fear. Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're using mining charges as guided missiles and converting our own captured drones against us. At Preserve Gamma 4, the humans had an inside advantage. The Resistance had been gathering intelligence for months, mapping every weakness in the facility's defenses. When Captain Moon Seo's stealth frigate Shadowstrike arrived, the prisoners were ready. Han Bin led the internal uprising, using improvised explosives to destroy the Preserve's power systems, just as the human fleet attacked from outside. The Velkari found themselves fighting a war on two fronts against an enemy that seemed to know their every move. The humans are in the ventilation systems, reported a panicked Velkari guard. They're everywhere at once. The space battle above Preserve Alpha 9 lasted 6 hours. The Velkari had more ships and better weapons, but the humans fought with desperate creativity. Captain Seo Jun's pack of hunter-killers moved like wolves, picking off isolated alien vessels while avoiding direct confrontation with the main fleet. Use the asteroid field, he ordered his squadron. Make them come to us where their size works against them. The human ships ducked and weaved between the space rocks, using the terrain to their advantage. When Velkari battleships tried to follow, the humans collapsed mining tunnels they had prepared, trapping the larger vessels in debris fields. Dr. Kang Yu, monitoring the battle from Earth, watched as her adaptive technology systems evolved in real time. Each human ship that survived an encounter shared its defensive improvements with the entire fleet through quantum communication links. Admiral, she reported excitedly, the adaptive matrix is working better than projected. Our ships are becoming immune to their standard weapons after just 2 or 3 engagements. The psychological impact of the attack spread throughout the Velkari Empire faster than the military reports. Species that had been terrorized for centuries by Velkari hunting expeditions suddenly heard that the hunters themselves were being hunted. Young Beidou, now commanding a captured Velkari courier ship, intercepted enemy communications describing panic in their outer territories. Noble families were canceling hunting trips. Military commanders were demanding reinforcements for what should have been simple prisoner management. They're scared, he transmitted to the human fleet. For the first time in their history, they're the ones being hunted. The final victory came when the humans captured Huntmaster Velthak himself. The alien who had proposed turning humanity into sport found himself in a prison cell aboard Captain Song Hyun's stolen ship. Your empire made one crucial mistake, Song Hyun told his prisoner. You thought we would stay victims forever. You forgot that predators can be made as well as born. The war had begun. The war had changed everything. What began as alien hunting expeditions had become humanity's fight for survival, and the Velkari Empire was discovering they had awakened something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. Admiral Lim Ga stood on the bridge of the command ship Vengeance, watching her tactical display as human vessels engaged a Velkari patrol fleet near the Kepler system. The alien ships fired their plasma cannons, but the energy beams simply bounced off the human shields without causing damage. Their weapons are completely ineffective now, reported Captain Moon Seo from her stealth frigate Ghostwalker. The adaptive matrix has learned to counter their plasma technology. We might as well be immune. The human ships had evolved during months of constant battle. Every encounter taught their artificial intelligence systems new ways to defend against Velkari weapons. What had started as desperate improvisation had become technological superiority. Commander Han Bin led his squadron of converted mining vessels toward the enemy formation. His ships looked nothing like traditional warships, but they carried industrial, equipment that had been turned into devastating weapons. "Mining charges are ready," he transmitted to his crew. "Remember, these aren't designed to cut through rock anymore. They're designed to cut through alien hulls." The Velkari had never faced weapons like these. Human mining explosives could adapt their blast patterns in real time, finding weak points in enemy armor that conventional weapons would miss. Drilling equipment became precision weapons that could core through the thickest battle plate. Dok Durdor. Kang Yu worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Innovation. Around her, dozens of captured Velkari devices had been torn apart and rebuilt using human engineering principles. The results were weapons that the aliens couldn't even recognize, much less defend against. "We've cracked their shield harmonics," she announced to the fleet. "Every Velkari defensive system uses the same base frequency. I'm uploading the disruptor pattern to all ships now." Within minutes, every human weapon in the fleet had been updated with the new technology. Velkari shields that had protected their ships for centuries became useless in seconds. The psychological warfare was just as effective as the technological advances. Captain John Woo commanded a group of ships that specialized in hunting Velkari hunting parties. They would arrive at planned hunting sites hours before the aliens, setting up ambushes that turned the tables completely. "Velkari hunting vessel detected entering the system," reported her sensor operator. 12 ships. Looks like a full noble expedition." "Perfect," John Woo smiled. "Begin jamming their communications. I want them to feel exactly what their human prey felt. Alone, cut off, and being stalked by something they can't understand." The human ships used stealth technology to surround the Velkari formation without being detected. Then they began picking off the alien vessels one by one, using hit-and-run tactics that left the survivors terrified and confused. Commander Velthak, now a prisoner aboard Captain Song Hyun's flagship, watched the battle through his cell's viewing port. His own people were fleeing in panic from ships they had once considered primitive. "This is impossible," he muttered. "Your species was barely capable of interstellar travel 6 months ago." Song Hyun stood beside the cell, watching the same battle. "You made the mistake of thinking intelligence and creativity were the same as technological development. We may have had simpler tools, but we've always been good at solving problems." The human fleet had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Ships captured from the Velkari were quickly modified with human improvements, creating hybrid vessels that combined alien technology with human ingenuity. Even cargo haulers and civilian transports had been converted into fighting ships. Captain Park Jin commanded one such converted vessel, a former passenger liner that now carried experimental weapons. "Sir, we're detecting a Velkari supply convoy heading for their forward base. 50 ships lightly defended. Intercept and destroy," ordered Admiral Liam Ga. "Leave no survivors to report our capabilities." The attack was swift and brutal. Human ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already locked onto target. The Velkari convoy was destroyed in less than 20 minutes, their advanced technology useless against enemies who fought with tactics no civilized species would consider. Meanwhile, resistance fighters on the remaining hunting preserves had become something far more dangerous than prisoners. Kang Min led coordinated uprisings that turned the facilities into death traps for their former captors. "Every system in this place can be weaponized," he explained to newly freed prisoners. "Air recyclers become poison gas dispensers. Artificial gravity becomes a crushing weapon. Even the lights can be turned into blinding strobe attacks." The Velkari found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to learn and adapt faster than their own technology could evolve. Human ships that were damaged in battle would retreat, upgrade their systems, and return stronger than before. Dr. Yoon Soo, now leading the Biological Warfare Division, had developed compounds that specifically targeted Velkari physiology. "Their enhanced senses make them vulnerable to sensory overload," she reported. "Chemical agents that would barely affect humans can completely incapacitate them." The alien empire that had terrorized hundreds of worlds now faced reports of defeats from every front. Their hunting fleets were being destroyed, their forward bases captured, and their technological advantages eliminated one by one. How did we underestimate them so completely? Demanded Imperial Commander Zarthok during an emergency council meeting. His military advisor's response was grim. We assumed they were just clever animals. We never considered that they might be apex predators who simply hadn't found their prey yet. The hunters had become the hunted and humanity was just getting started. 1 year after the first human colony burned, the largest fleet in human history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velkari home system. Fleet Admiral Cho Rin stood on the bridge of the flagship Humanity's Wrath, watching as 800 human vessels appeared like a storm of vengeance among the stars. All ships report ready for Operation Final Hunt, announced Captain Seo Jun from his position at the communications console. Every captured Velkari technology has been improved. Every weapon system upgraded. We're not the same species they started hunting. The Velkari home fleet scrambled to respond, but they faced an enemy unlike anything in their military history. Human ships moved in coordinated swarms, splitting apart and reforming in patterns that confused alien targeting systems. What looked like chaos was actually precise tactical planning, based on months of hard-won experience. Commander Han Bin led the first wave of attack ships toward the outer defense stations. His vessels looked like mechanical predators, bristling with weapons that had been designed specifically to kill Velkari. Mining charges had been replaced with plasma penetrators. Drilling equipment had become hull-cutting beams that could slice through battleships. "Remember what they did to our people," he transmitted to his squadron. "No mercy for those who showed none to our children." The space battle that followed would be remembered as the bloodiest 18 hours in galactic history. Velkari commanders, who had spent centuries hunting weaker species, suddenly found themselves fighting for their lives against prey that had evolved into apex predators. Admiral Lim Ga commanded the center fleet from her flagship Retribution. Around her, human ships demonstrated technologies the aliens had never imagined. Vessels that could split into multiple smaller units, weapons that learned and adapted during battle, and defensive systems that seemed to anticipate enemy attacks. "Sir, their plasma cannons are having no effect," reported her weapons officer with barely contained excitement. "Our adaptive shielding is absorbing everything they throw at us." The Velkari had built their empire on technological superiority, but humans had turned that advantage against them. Every captured ship, every studied weapon, every analyzed piece of equipment had been reverse-engineered and improved. Human creativity had transformed alien technology into something the original creators couldn't recognize. Captain Moon Seo piloted her stealth destroyer Silent Death through the enemy formation like a ghost. Her ship had been designed for assassination missions, capable of appearing next to enemy vessels without warning. Velkari admirals who had planned grand battles found themselves dying in their command chairs before they even knew they were under attack. "Target their command ships first," she transmitted to the other stealth units. "Cut off their coordination and they'll panic." The psychological warfare was devastating. Species that had terrorized the galaxy for generations now faced an enemy that fought with the focused rage of survivors. Human ships didn't just destroy Velkari vessels, they hunted them down with methodical precision. Dr. Kang Yu monitored the battle from the research vessel Innovation, watching as her technological innovations proved themselves in combat. Human weapons adapted to enemy countermeasures faster than the Velkari could deploy them. Each destroyed alien ship provided data that made the human fleet stronger. "Admiral," she reported to Cho Rin, "their defensive systems are breaking down. Completely. Our adaptive algorithms are evolving faster than their ability to respond." Young Beidou, now commanding his own strike force, led the assault on the Velkari planetary defense grid. His ships moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks through quantum communication links that allowed them to react as a single organism. "All units begin the final approach," he ordered. "Target their orbital platforms first, then move to the surface installations." The Velkari homeworld had been considered impregnable, protected by weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But human engineers had spent months studying those defenses, finding weaknesses that the aliens never knew existed. Commander Velthok, former hunt master of the Velkari Empire, watched the destruction from his prison cell aboard the Humanity's Wrath. His own people were fleeing in terror from ships they had once dismissed as primitive. "Your empire is finished," Captain Song-hyun told him, standing outside the cell. "Every species you terrorized is watching this battle. They're seeing their hunters brought to their knees by the prey they underestimated." The final phase of operation. Final hunt began when human ground forces landed on the Velkari capital world. These weren't the desperate colonists who had been hunted for sport. These were soldiers hardened by months of asymmetric warfare, equipped with weapons designed specifically to kill their former tormentors. Captain Lee Tae led the assault on the Imperial Palace, the symbol of Velkari power throughout the galaxy. His troops moved through the massive structure like apex predators reclaiming their territory, systematically eliminating any resistance. "For every human child you hunted," he transmitted as his forces reached the throne room, "for every family you destroyed for entertainment, this is our answer." The Emperor of the Velkari Empire surrendered personally to Fleet Admiral Cho Rin in the ruins of his palace. The species that had built an empire on the suffering of others knelt before the prey they had so casually dismissed. "Your empire ends today," Admiral Cho declared. "Let this be a lesson to any species that would hunt innocent beings for sport. Humanity may start as your victims, but we will always finish as your executioners." The human fleet departed Velkari space not as the desperate survivors they had been, but as the galaxy's newest apex predators. Across hundreds of worlds, species that had lived in fear of the hunters celebrated their liberation.